Dude, I seriously thought we left this always online garbage back in 2013. But apparently Sony is out here trying to act like our parole officer by quietly sneaking in a ridiculous 30-day online license check for all of our digital PlayStation games. Out of nowhere this past week, gamers started panicking because TechRadar and Vice both put out reports that PlayStation is locking people out of their own games. Now, this was happening if they don't connect to the internet once a month. I was reading this and hoping it was just like an out-of-season April Fool's joke, but no, traces of it are actually showing up in the wild, and people are absolutely losing their minds over it. And honestly, they have every right to be mad. We already deal with publishers constantly trying to squeeze every last penny out of us with battle passes and microtransactions. Now we literally have to ask for permission just to play offline single-player games we already paid for. So here's exactly what's going on here, dude. Apparently, anyone who bought a digital game after the March 2026 system update is getting slapped with this weird valid period timer. If you're on a PS4, you can literally go into the game's information tab and see a physical countdown clock showing exactly when your game is going to expire. It says valid period start, valid period end, and gives you the remaining time before your game turns into a useless brick. And if you're on PS5, well, it's even worse because the timer is completely hidden in the background. You won't even know if your license got revoked until you try to boot up a single player game offline and it crashes and gives you a system error. Even if you have your console set as your primary system, which used to be the golden rule for offline play, it literally doesn't matter anymore. It still demands that you phone home to mommy Sony every 30 days just to prove that you're allowed to play the game that you bought with your hard-earned money. Like, what happened to people deployed in the military taking their consoles on the ships, or gamers living in rural areas where the internet drops out for a week at a time? If PlayStation Network gets hacked again and goes offline for a month, you know, like back in the PS3 days, everyone just gets locked out. This news has completely reignited the whole games as rentals debate, because if you can't play a game offline whenever you want, you don't actually own it, dude. You just rented it at a premium price. And the craziest part is, nobody even knows if this is intentional or just some bug. Gamers rushed out to the PlayStation support chat to figure out what the freak is going on, and the official AI support bot literally confirmed it. The bot flat out said, yeah, your license expires if you don't connect within 30 days, and the game won't launch. But then you have actual live human support agents at Sony running damage control, telling outlets that there's no new DRM policy and that you can play it offline just fine. Some insiders are claiming it just might be a broken system, they just quietly add it to combat digital refund scammers. But right now, it just looks like complete incompetence. Either Sony intentionally tried to sneak in the worst DRM imaginable into our consoles, or they pushed out an update so broken that it fundamentally changed how digital ownership works on PlayStation. And neither of those is a good look for them. Especially when you remember back in 2021, when Sony had that massive CMOS battery bomb issue that locked people out of their digital libraries. They literally had to patch the firmware because of the extreme backlash they were getting over this. And now 5 years later, they're right back to messing with our digital licenses. But honestly, dude, the sheer hypocrisy of Sony doing this is just blowing my mind right now. Like back in 2013 when Microsoft completely imploded at E3 because they announced that the Xbox One would require an always online check every 24 hours, Microsoft executives were basically telling people to just stick with the Xbox 360. It was a complete disaster, and Sony literally took that golden opportunity and curb-stomped Microsoft with it. They put out that legendary troll video showing the world exactly how to share games on the PS4, which was literally just one guy smiling and handing a disc to his friend. It was the easiest marketing win in gaming history. They built the entire PS4 generation on the promise that they respected offline play and consumer rights, and now we're here in 2020 2026, and Sony is out here doing the exact same thing, but with a 30-day timer instead. Like, congratulations Sony, you've lived long enough to see yourself become the villain. They went from mocking Microsoft to copying their absolute worst ideas. It just proves what that executive over at Ubisoft told us a few years back. Remember when their director of subscriptions looked to gamers in the eyes and said that we need to get comfortable with not owning our own games? He was literally exposing the AAA industry's master plan. Digital games aren't purchases, dude. They're long-term rentals. You drop $70 on a new game, but you just bought a temporary license that Sony or Ubisoft or any digital storefront can revoke the second their servers go down. We already saw Ubisoft rip the Crew out of people's libraries when they shut it down with no offline patch at all. These companies just want you paying premium prices for nothing, for something that they can take away at any moment. Even GameStop saw the writing on the wall and capitalized on the drama, putting out a statement reminding everyone that this garbage doesn't happen if you just buy physical games on a disc. But the problem is publishers are actively trying to kill off the disc drive to force us into the digital ecosystem. Just look at the PS5 Pro launching as a digital-only console, where you have to buy the disc drive separately. Like, these guys are boiling the frog slowly. They want total control so that they can block to use game sales, charge whatever they want, and then treat your library as an active subscription service. You can practically see the exact same corporate mindset poisoning the movie business today. You've got these big Hollywood executives greenlighting absolute garbage with $250 million budgets, expecting us to just clap like trained seals for another tired superhero reboot. They throw all this money at terrible CGI that legitimately looks worse than early PS3 games, and then act completely baffled when their box office numbers completely fumble. They just want safe, predictable income instead of making actual art, and the gaming industry is doing the same freakish stuff. These massive studios are terrified of taking a creative risk and making a standard complete video game, so they bloat the budget to around $200 million, slap on a live service model, and then add an always online requirement just to protect their bottom line. But while the suits are busy trying to figure out how to lock down our game libraries, the smaller development teams are stealing their lunch money. You have indie studios operating on shoestring budgets, and they're treating gamers with actual respect, letting you play completely offline. And they're sweeping the charts. We literally just watched that new pirate survival game Windrose absolutely dominate Ubisoft's so-called quadruple A disaster Skull and Bones. I mean, we know that Sony is pretty desperate right now. They just threw like billions of dollars at Bungie, and their newest game Marathon is barely holding on to 19,000 players on Steam right now because the gaming market is just completely rejecting it. And that's not really a good sign when your entire shift is moving towards live service games. If Sony is going to seriously go through with this 30-day license check as an actual policy, it's going to be one of the biggest fumbles in gaming history. They're literally handing all of their goodwill over to PC and Nintendo on a silver platter. We already deal with enough of this nonsense from these big studios, laying off thousands of developers and taking their games off the stores as soon as they start crumbling. And we don't need them restricting the games that we already are playing. It's a slap in the face to every loyal PlayStation fan who supported them since the PS4, PS3, or PS2, or even PS1 era. Until these big companies figure out that gamers are tired of the slop, the AAA gaming crash is just gonna keep getting worse. Anyway, dude, I'm gonna go and try to find physical copies of all my favorite games before Sony decides to put timers on those too. This is RageWatch, and I'm out. Thanks for watching.